Channel 2's Sports Zone Signing Day starts now.
The quest for a national championship begins today for college football programs across the country. Today is the day that fan bases live for, the internet blogs point towards, and will be a momentous and monumental, unbelievable day for some programs, no doubt about it. Greetings and welcome into Sports Zone Signing Day presented by American Family Insurance. Thanks for joining us here on WSB-TV.com. Zach Klein along with my man Anthony Amey, and today is the day the top high school football players in the nation sign their national letters of intent indicating where they will play college football.
And our Sports Zone team of experts includes a former North Clayton High School and UGA quarterback DJ Shockley, who went on to lead Georgia and, of course, play for the Atlanta Falcons. You'll also hear from Michael Carvell, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution recruiting expert, who will help us break down today's decisions. And, of course, you can join the show and the conversation on Facebook, facebook.com/highschoolfootball, or on Twitter using the hashtag SZON2.
All right, many recruits faxed in their letters of intent to their chosen schools this morning, but several fan bases anxiously await the decision of the state's #1 recruits. All eyes on that man, number 8. Norcross High's Lorenzo Carter, the 6'5", 232-pounder, ranks as the #1 weak-side linebacker in the country and one of the top defensive ends in the United States. He could play either position at the next level. Schools have fought for face time with the 2-time state football champ, but they'll have to wait a few more hours to learn what his future holds. He's expected to announce his college choice at 3:45 this afternoon. Here's a look at Carter's finalists. He has the Georgia Bulldogs, the Florida State Seminoles, LSU Tigers, Florida, and Alabama are also in play. Those schools have been busy visiting at Carter's house and watching his Norcross basketball games over the last few days. We will hear what Lorenzo is thinking going into signing day a little bit later in the show.
And Carter is not the only big-name Georgia recruit that decided to wait until signing day to make his announcement. His teammate at Norcross, Miles Autry, waited until signing day to announce as well. Although his situation a little different, Autry, one of the state's highest-profile running backs heading into this past season, but an injury suffered in the 2012 state championship forced him to miss a number of games. Fortunately, though, he was able to make it back for December state title game, and he contributed in a big way. Kickoff return for a touchdown and a 69-yard scoring reception. He's set to announce just after Carter this afternoon.
And there's plenty of interest among Georgia, Clemson, and Auburn fans over this player, Andrew Williams of Eagles Landing Christian Academy. Williams took his official visit to Athens this past weekend, watched the Super Bowl with Coach Mark Richt, and UGA is now considered a contender for his services. Williams has said he'll make an announcement today at 2 o'clock. Of course, he'll bring you details as soon as it happens. You know, there are usually a few players that wait until signing day to announce their college plans, and this trio certainly drawing a lot of intrigue today.
And for more on that, we bring in Michael Carvell from the AJC. Michael, you follow this pretty much 365 days a year. You talk to and text so many of these young men on a weekly, sometimes daily basis. Why have they waited so long to announce?
Yeah, the reason some kids wait until signing day, the easy answer for that is because they can. Now, you're talking about the exception to the rule. The guys that we're seeing waiting today, and especially this afternoon, they have offers from everybody, and they can wait as long as they want. But about 95% of these kids, as you've seen, they've committed early. Even as far as their junior year in high school. That's where most of it happens. But these last 3 guys, the big guys in Georgia, Miles Autry, Andrew Williams, Lorenzo Carter, the big 3 of people have dubbed them, they can take their time because they can.
All right, much more from Michael Carvell throughout the show here on our National Signing Day Spectacular. Now for Georgia Bulldog fans, thankfully there weren't any surprises in Cedartown today. That is home to the state's 3rd-ranked overall recruit and top running back in the state of Georgia, Nick Chubb. Chubb rushed for 2,683 yards and 40 touchdowns as a senior. His junior year, he accounted for over 2,700 yards and 38 touchdowns, and he did that in just 10 games. Our Anthony Amey caught up with Chubb this morning at Cedartown High School.
All right, Nick, first of all, congratulations on today. Georgia, was your #1. You committed to them back in the summer. Why, in so many instances we see today where guys waited until today to actually sign and commit, why did you decide back in June that you wanted to be a Bulldog?
Well, as a high school player, I had more things to worry about. I mean, recruiting is fun, but I had a team, to myself for the last couple of months, and I was focused on them, the guys here at Cedartown. So I went in and committed and got out the way and focused on us.
Did it make that senior season easier for you?
A lot easier.
How so?
I know I'm committed to Georgia. I go visit them, no one else. I just talked to, Mark Ritt and the rest of the coaching staff, and that was it.
The numbers you put up the last 2 years, eye-popping, to say the least. What are your expectations as you head to Athens as a true freshman?
I mean, true freshman, it'll be hard, but, they showed that they'll play the best running back. I'm all for that. I'll go in and give my best, and hopefully I can get some playing time.
Getting some playing time, obviously, you're going to have, a couple of studs in front of you, and Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall, both of whom should be 100% healthy by the time fall comes around. What's your mindset as you go in knowing that you have excellent running backs, with good resumes there that are going to be, in all likelihood in front of you on the depth chart?
That's a good thing. That's how I look at it. I can go and learn from those guys. They're both very good running backs, and I can learn a lot from them and take what they have, and apply it to myself and become a better running back for me.
Last thing, the comfort level that you felt with the coaching staff and with the University of Georgia, how much does that account into the decision as far as where you want to go to school?
I mean, it's a lot. It's a big decision. That's where you're going to basically be living, the next couple of years of your life. So, I mean, that was a big factor, and I'm very comfortable with them and what they do, and I'm ready to go there.
All right, I'm sure the University of Georgia is happy about it as well. Congratulations again. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bulldog fans definitely fired up about his services heading to Athens. So how does he fit in at Georgia? Let's bring back the AJC's Michael Carvell and former Bulldog and Falcon quarterback DJ Shockley.
Yeah, and Michael, what impacted the combination of those rising juniors, Gurley and Marshall, play in Chubb's decision? And will Chubb play as a true freshman?
Yeah. I think with Keith Marshall and Todd Gurley, they were obviously a good influence on Nick Chubb, that he saw two guys could come there and be superstars. But ironically, probably the biggest impact that Gurley and Keith Marshall had on Nick Chubb was he saw how much depth you need at running back in the SEC. Georgia was without those guys, and they were playing kids who were expected to be redshirted. So Nick Chubb will know. I mean, this leads to our next topic about Nick Chubb. Will he play next year? I think he will, because SEC coaches have learned, especially at Georgia, that a running back has such a short shelf life. If they're good enough to play, you got to use them immediately. You saw that with Sean Marino. He was redshirted as a freshman when some players up there were telling me that he was actually the best running back on the team when he was redshirted. But Georgia, they wanted to preserve a year for him. But, of course, you know the rest of the story. He blew it up the next 2 years, and because he was in college for 3 years, he was able to leave after his sophomore season. I don't think Mark Richt makes that mistake again. I think Nick Chubb plays for Georgia this season. And one last thing, regardless of what Lorenzo Carter does, I would say Nick Chubb is the best recruit for Georgia in 2014.
A bold statement there from Michael Carvell as we welcome back in DJ Shockley. Indeed, he mentioned Sean Marino. What do you think Mr. Chubb has to do to get to that level? Think is it possible to live up to these expectations that Georgia running backs now have? Todd Gurley, Keith Marshall, and now Chubb.
Well, the expectations are extremely high for a guy like Nick Chubb, coming in with a lot of great running backs in front of him already. But I think the best thing he's going to have to do is come in and play on all three downs. A guy who can come in and play first, second, and third down. There are a lot of guys who play on this level who can only run the football. They come off the field in passing situations. If he's able to stay on the field and catch the football, we saw this year when guys took away Todd Gurley early in the season or early in games, they were able to throw him the football. If he can stay on the field for all three downs and be an impact first, second, and third down, that makes it huge. It makes him a viable option during the season. So Chubb has the ability. He can do it. He can catch out the backfield as well. But if he can stay on the field and, of course, stay healthy, he'll have a good chance of being one of those elite running backs to leave University of Georgia.
Be an interesting mix, too, with Brendan Douglas and J.J. Green both playing as true freshmen last year. To see how they figure into the mix. Now, Chubb will have some company in Athens. Here's a look at some of the top players who signed with the Bulldogs today. Jake Edwards from Heard County is headed to Athens. He'll be joined by Tucker's Dietrich Dukes and the big man from Marist, and that is Kendall Baker, all now Georgia Bulldogs.
So how are Coach Mark Richt and his staff feeling about today's signing day? Joining us now on the phone from Athens is Daryl Jones, Director of On-Campus Recruiting. Coach, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. So sum up today's festivities for us, will you?
Zach, first of all, thanks for having me. And you know it's a great day when you call in, get patched in, and the first thing you hear is Nick Chubb talking about being a Bulldog. Is
that the candle on the cake right there? Was he the man that you guys set your sights on from day one as an impact player in Athens?
Well, he certainly is going to be a darn good dog, almost of the likes of DJ Shockley, who I'm sure is sitting right there with a big smile on his face watching today unfold.
Coach Jones, as far as the rest of the day is concerned, considering you had that big smile on your face, hearing what Nick Chubb had to say, how anxious is the staff up there as you await 345 and Lorenzo Carter's decision?
Well, and there's a couple other pieces that we just want to tie up, mostly some just some formalities with NLI letters being documented as official by our compliance department and things of that nature. But you're right, we're waiting for the day to conclude, and there's still a couple presents underneath the tree that we sure would like to open. And if they say Georgia, we'll be overly excited. But I'm going to tell you what, as I think Michael said, or maybe Zach said it, what we've done today is extremely exciting because we got the guys that we wanted. And that they want to be Georgia Bulldogs, and that's always the best mix when you can line up the ones that you want with the guys that want you.
One more question for you, Coach, before we let you go. Give us an indication as to how the coaching staff feels the night before signing day. What's going through your bodies and your stomachs, and what's the deal with your nerves as a staff as you await the decisions of 17, 18, 19-year-olds?
Well, obviously nobody likes the unknown, but there's also a very cerebral part about it where we're crunching some numbers. We're taking a look at guys who maybe we had offered and then have found out that they want to go someplace else. And then we respond by having our other pieces in place to then initiate some offers, which I think it's been documented. We did that last night, and we were successful on a couple occasions. So there's both the excitement of the next day, like you would anticipate waking up for Christmas and seeing some presents under the tree. But then there's also that cerebral part about, okay, now let's make sure we game plan this correctly. Because in football, if you fumble the football, you better have a plan to recover it. And not that there was any fumbles, but the fact that there were some adjustments that needed to be made based on some ongoing situations last night.
Daryl, I got one final question for you. At last check, I think you had 18 total commitments signing their national letters of intent, 9 from the state of Georgia, 9 outside of Georgia. As a philosophy for you and your staff, what is it? Do you want to shore up the borders around Georgia, take the best talent from side, or because the Bulldog brand is so strong, do you want to extend that nationally and choose from the best of the best?
And I don't know if our all-star Claude Felton has been able to release that, but I believe Dashawn Sims is now official, and I don't know if you had him on the board or not. So that would make 19, I believe.
Okay.
So there's another Georgia boy, and you're exactly right. Our head coach charges our position coaches and our recruiting department to find the best talent that helps us win championships within the state of Georgia. And then if we need to go outside for some kids that we can backfill that will help us win those SEC and national championships from a philosophy standpoint, we'll go outside. We'll try to linger around our own borders in the Carolinas where we've had success, and then in the parts of Florida that closely border Georgia.
Daryl Jones, Director of On-Campus Recruiting for the University of Georgia. We appreciate your time. Sit back, relax, and soak it all in, man. It only comes once every year, but it's been a lot of hard work and long hours for you and your staff. Congratulations on the success you've had so far. We appreciate your time here on WSB-TV.com.
Thanks for having us. Go Dogs. God bless.
All right. Now, before we look forward, let's take a look back at one of the greatest Bulldogs of all time. That, of course, Herschel Walker. Walker, a standout for Johnson County High School in Wrightsville from 1976 to 1979.
He ran for more than 3,100 yards as a senior, leading the Trojans to a state title. But as it turns out, signing his name to play at Georgia wasn't at the top of his to-do list. Herschel didn't sign his letter of intent until Easter Sunday. That's several months after the official signing day. As for signing day now, he'd like to see the Dogs do a little better with some of the kids we are discussing right now.
But one thing I think we got to do at Georgia is we got to continue to recruit within the state. You know, I've been saying that. I said, guys, we're losing so much talent out of the state of Georgia to these other places. You know, I go to University of Alabama, and this kid is from Georgia. I'm like, why didn't you go to Georgia? And he wanted to go to Alabama. So my thing is, sometimes a 4-star athlete in his home is a 5-star athlete when he plays.
All right. Now, traditionally, the state of Georgia boasts one of the largest stockpiles of talented high school football players in the country, and this year is no different. So where are they headed to school this year?
Dante Sawyer, right? North Gwinnett. four-star guy. It always intrigues me too when you talk about these guys that are ranked the way they are. Somebody like a Dante Sawyer, four-star recruit. Of course, I mean he deserves that ranking. But Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin caught the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl from Russell Wilson. Two-star recruits. Right. So, I mean, what do we really know?
Well, Sawyer, a four-star, North Gwinnett coach Bob Spire, always hyping up his play, and deservingly so. He lined up in the backfield this year. He scored a few touchdowns. He boasted offers from more than a dozen big-time programs, including Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, and the Ohio State Buckeyes. As for his final decision, when it was time to put the pen to the paper, he was off to Columbia, South Carolina. That's right. He signed with Steve Spurrier and the South Carolina Gamecocks. This is what he had to say.
I want to stay a little bit around, you know. I always wanted to play in the SEC as a child, so making my dreams come true. At first, it was kind of stressful. Then it got fun. And then once I made my commitment, it was very exciting.
Now, Sawyer is not the only top talent from the metro area taking his skills to South Carolina. He'll be joined on the defensive side of the ball by cornerback DJ Smith out of Walton High School. Rivals.com ranks Smith as the 7th best corner recruit in the country. And Smith announced his decision to play for Steve Spurrier last month, noting his chance for early playing time and the proximity of Columbia. The 6-foot, 190-pound Smith ranked as a 4-star prospect and even played some wide receiver for the Raiders.
It feels good to finally be done with the process. I mean, it was pretty much over when I committed on TV, I felt like. But, I mean, today is just like a relief. Like, got to sign the papers last night, all the paperwork done, like it's official, so it's that much better. I mean, all my friends I've been growing up with, too, they parents, like, I've been friends with all my life. They all happy and stuff because I'm signing with a couple other friends. But for the most part, yeah, my family excited.
All right, time now to bring in the AJC's Michael Carvell to get his thoughts both on Sawyer and Smith, both headed to South Carolina. Michael, why are these two headed out of state, and what kind of impact do you think they might have?
Zach, let me start off by saying I think that you're a 5-star. But back to Dante Sawyer, he wanted to commit to Georgia or Alabama last spring, but neither school was ready to accept his commitment. They wanted to see what he would do as a senior, and it was probably a big mistake by both schools because it was lights out for Dante Sawyer as a senior. He led North Gwinnett to an appearance in the state championship game. Then he went to the Army Bowl and blew it up there. He had 3 sacks against the nation's best players. He ended up picking South Carolina over Missouri, and there were schools all over the place trying to get in with him late. But he stuck with the Gamecocks, and I think he's one of the state's top 5 players. About DJ Smith, the cornerback from Walton High School, he had a rough senior year. He only had 1 touchdown receiving, 1 touchdown running the ball. I don't know what was going on with DJ Smith, but I will say this. South Carolina got another kid from Georgia who is probably one of the state's top 5 prospects in Cedar Grove High School linebacker, Bryson Allen Williams. We'll talk about him later, but he had late flirtations with Alabama and Georgia and stuck with South Carolina. Just a great job by the Gamecocks and, of course, the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, it was a big year in Georgia for Steve Spurrier, the old ball coach at South Carolina. Smith and Sawyer not the only Georgia players to head to South Carolina. Corey Rogers will join them in the Palmetto State. But the Buford star linebacker's commute will be a little shorter. That's right, he's not going to South Carolina, folks. He's headed to Clemson to play for Dabo Sweeney. The U.S. Army All-American played in the state championship game all 4 years at Buford, helping the Wolves win 3 titles in that span. He anchored a defense that gave up 111 points all season long. Buford coach Jess Simpson called Rogers one of the best players that has ever come through Buford, and that's saying a lot.
I picked Clemson because honestly it's the best fit for me. I've been multiple times. Even before I committed, I went 4 or 5 times to the university. And I felt at home, and I felt that place had the best opportunity, and it was the best fit for me. I'm a Buford-born boy, and I'm definitely going to miss the football program and all these coaches and the great underclassmen that followed us as seniors. And I just love Buford, and I'm going to miss it.
And sure looked comfortable with that tiger paw on his head, right? Hey, the state's second highest rated high school recruit, as noted by 24/7 Sports, takes us to the coast. It's Liberty County's Raekwon McMillan. McMillan named Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, and Auburn as his finalists, but when the linebacker made his decision, he opted to leave the South and become a Buckeye. Yeah, McMillan will play for Urban Meyer at Ohio State, and don't be surprised to see him on the field right away either, because they're weak at linebacker, and McMillan enrolled this semester, so he'll have 8 months to learn the Buckeyes playbook, and they'll have an opportunity to go through spring practice with the team. ESPN ranked him as the 13th best high schooler in the country and actually had him 1 spot ahead of Lorenzo Carter.
Wow, that is saying something right there. All right, time now to bring in AJC's Michael Carvell. Mike, what do you think about Rodgers heading to Clemson and McMillan signing with the Buckeyes of Ohio State?
Yeah, Raekwon McMillan, everybody knows about him. He won the Butkus Award for being the nation's top high school linebacker, but I got to be honest. I mean, I love Raekwon, and there was a lot of sexy things about him. He had a cool first name. He's from a small town in South Georgia. The recruiting analysts love a good story, and he was. He's a great player. But after watching these players in person, I would put Corey Rodgers, I think he's just as good as Raekwon, if not better. So Clemson fans, Georgia fans who were upset about not getting Raekwon, I think they should be, just fine with Corey Rodgers. He's the Buford linebacker going to Clemson. And Georgia, I think they got a steal with Dietrich Dukes. He was the Tucker linebacker who was committed to Louisville and switched to Georgia, and despite all the changes on the Bulldogs defensive staff, he stayed with the Bulldogs. So it was a really, really good class of linebackers in Georgia, and I think you could just throw those 3 up in the air, Raekwon McMillan, Corey Rodgers, and Dietrich Dukes, and name any one of those guys as the state's top linebackers. But another good year for linebackers in Georgia.
Michael mentioned Dietrich Dukes of Tucker. Last time we saw Tucker, they were being taken out by the Berry brothers, Evan and Elliott Berry. They were punishing teams in the playoffs en route to a state title for Creekside, and what might have been the biggest non-surprise of the recruiting season in the state. The brothers decided to follow in their brother Eric's footsteps and head to Rocky Top. They will play at Tennessee. Older brother Eric played at Tennessee and is now a Pro Bowl safety for the Kansas City Chiefs. Evan Berry ranked as the 22nd best recruit in the state, listed as an athlete. His brother Elliott ranked 68th in the state, and he plays outside linebacker.
All right, Michael, was there ever any doubt that this pair was going to Tennessee as a package deal? And did other schools really try to recruit them, consider the circumstances?
Yeah, there were a couple things going on here. First of all, these guys never had any – there were a couple issues going on with the Berry brothers here. First thing, some colleges – did not want to take them as a package deal, and that was the deal all along for them. They were going to go to the same college together, and some colleges offered one brother and not the other. They weren't going to have any of that. They both wanted to play in college together, and like you mentioned, they are Tennessee legacies, with their older brother being NFL Pro Bowler Eric Berry of the Kansas City Chiefs. And because of that pipeline, or legacy, as you would say, they were always considered locks to go to Tennessee. I know they talked a lot about other schools, but when it was time to commit about a few months ago, Tennessee was their only choice. And I think they'll be good players at Tennessee. They don't know exactly where they will play, but knowing those Berry boys, they will find a way to get on the field somehow.
Yeah, one of the best defensive players we've seen here in Georgia high school football, and from the defensive side of the football to the offense, and without question, one of the best we have seen. Really never been a quarterback in the state of Georgia like Gainesville's Deshaun Watson. He set career yards passing in the state championship game, and he did it, folks, as a junior. Watson added another 3,700 yards passing to the total his senior season, and in total, threw for more than 13,000 yards in his high school career. DJ, how many did you throw for in your career?
Not that many.
13,000. DJ threw for about 1,300, but he had legs and stuff like that.
I had more than that.
All right, 9,500 yards total, 13,000 plus. Added another 4,000 yards rushing, an astounding 214 touchdowns. Wow. And you get the idea, folks. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever come out of our state. What a career. He ranked as the #1 dual threat quarterback in the nation. But there was no suspense when it came to his college choice, as Watson committed to Clemson his sophomore season, and he stuck with that pledge. He was an early enrollee at Clemson, and he's there now learning that playbook.
Yeah, now Clemson has a big void at quarterback, of course, with the departure of record-setting Taj Boyd. Clemson opens the season August 30th in Athens against revenge-minded Georgia. So, DJ, I have to ask you, do you think we will see Deshaun play as a true freshman for Dabo Swinney?
Well, there's a good chance that can happen just because of – it's just like kids going from college to pros now. A lot of kids are starting when they're coming out as, rookies in the NFL. But now it's the same thing going from high school to college. These kids are more prepared when they get to college. Deshaun Watson, Zach, you just pointed out all the stats, everything that goes along with him. He is ready for the next level. Whether he starts, that's a different story. But I think he has a great opportunity to do it just because he's there now. He gets to go through spring. He gets that playbook under his belt now. He gets to understand what they want to do offensively and understand the speed of the game. Once he does that, I think he'll be ready come fall time, and there's a chance he could absolutely be ready to play. But they also have a guy in Cole Stout who's there now who actually played pretty well when Taj Boyd was out. So there's chances he could outdo him, but they have a guy ready. But Deshaun is definitely ready for the next level.
I also think it says something about the young man's character. We've seen so many guys flipping schools throughout their career. The senior year, he pledged to Clemson as a sophomore, stuck with it, never wavered, and now he's going to try to tear things up for Dabo Swinney.
Hey, you just mentioned that's kind of crazy. It never happened when I did. When I was coming out, we didn't do that. You know, we waited to signing day and all that. But for him to do that and have that character to wait it out, it's definitely
that just means you're getting old. That's what that means.
Quite true. You got to get older.
That's true. All right. At some point in the next few years, do not be surprised if a pair of Georgia high schoolers turn into one of the most prolific duos in the ACC. That's because joining Deshaun Watson at Clemson, Sandy Creek's Damari Kitts. Most recruiting services rank Kitt as the #1 wide receiver in the state this year. Now, he originally committed to Georgia after his sophomore season, but he reopened the process during his junior campaign before deciding on the Tigers. He accounted for more than 2,000 yards and 18 touchdowns between his junior and senior seasons. And like Watson, Kitt has enrolled early and is already on the Clemson campus.
All right, so the AJC's Michael Carvell rejoins us. And first, Michael, what's the deal with several of these kids enrolling in college during their senior year of high school? And how did the top-ranked quarterback and wide receiver in the state leave the state for Clemson?
Yeah, there's two things going on here as far as players enrolling early in college. The first one is schools love for their quarterbacks to come in early so they can learn the system. And a guy like Deshaun Watson, by him being able to graduate in December from Gainesville High School and reporting to Clemson last month, he could compete to start against Georgia next year in the season opener just because he has that big of a head start. The other thing about early enrollees, colleges are trying to do this more and more because they can get around the oversigning rules by the NCAA. Normally a college can sign 25 players a year, but if you bring in guys early, you're able to back count them toward the previous class, so it's like a little loophole to get around the 25-man limit. And as far as Damari Kitt going to Clemson with Deshaun Watson, those guys got to be real good friends at the Rising Seniors game. I don't think that was the primary reason that Damari Kitt went to Clemson, but it certainly didn't hurt, guys.
Let me say this also, as we're on that subject of players enrolling early. When I spoke to Nick Chubb this morning, he said that one of the big reasons he did not want to enroll early, he and his coach both said the same thing, he loves his teammates. He loves playing there. He's also a guy that runs track for Cedartown, so there was just a comfort level that he had staying there and enrolling in the fall with everybody else.
So go to his prom too, right?
Probably that's probably right too. Matter of fact, while we're still on this topic, what's your take on the value of enrolling early, and what about this combination? You did a number of our games for WSB-TV.com, and you saw a number of Sandy Creek games. You saw a number of Gainesville games. Deshaun Watson and Damari Creek teaming up for Clemson.
That's scary.
I mean, both of them are the real deal. I mean, when I see a guy who can throw it as well as he can, and then when you talked about Damari Kitt, he kind of excites me because I wish I could throw the football to him. He's a guy who attacks the football in the air, and having that kind of 1-2 combination go, and they're both there already, involved in the system already, understanding what it takes, getting acclimated to the college life so that it doesn't happen as soon as they get there in the summer or the fall. They understand exactly what it takes to be the best on the next level already because they played in organizations, they played in high schools that have been to state championships. They know how to win. They know what it takes. I think that's only going to help them on the next level because they bring that winning attitude to college.
Is it more important for maybe the skill set guys, the quarterback, to learn the playback and get in as opposed to maybe some offensive linemen, or do you think anybody who has the opportunity to enroll early should?
Well, in their position, the skill guys, I think it's a little bit harder to understand the playbook just because there's so much involved for a quarterback and receiver to understand the nuances of not just your position, but you got to know the nuances of the defenses, what they're going to do to you. In high school, it's a little bit more simplistic than it is in college. On the next level, it's so much harder to understand what it takes, especially in game time situations. Big offensive lineman, it's kind of block the guy in front of you or block the guy next to you. That's pretty much how it goes. Secondary, defensive guys, offensive guys, you got to know the whole picture.
I'm curious, how long did it take you to become comfortable with the playbook?
It took you almost a year. I mean, you have to be acclimated into that same system for at least a year, and it's good that they're there now because they get all this time in January, then they get to spring, then they get to summer to go over it again, and then they get to fall to do it for a third time where if you're coming in the summer, you only have one time to learn it. going into that fall. But by that time, it's time for the season to start.
All right, now during the high school football season, WSB-TV honored 11 of the best high school football players in the state as the Athletes of the Week. Now, many of the players we have talked about were on that list, but when it was time to vote for the Athlete of the Year, it was St. Pius cornerback Nick Ruffin who won the award. Ruffin was selected to play in the 2014 U.S. Army All-American Bowl. He ranked as the 8th best player in the state and lined up at cornerback, safety, wide receiver, and running back for Coach Paul Standard's club. The Ruffin will play in the secondary in college. He chose between Alabama, FSU, Georgia, and Ohio State, but decided Auburn was the place for him.
So where else did Georgia's best high school players select to go to school and play? Let's take a look. Bryson Allen Williams from Cedar Grove will join DJ Smith and Dante Sawyer at South Carolina. Dontavius Russell, 6'3", 300-pound monster defensive tackle out of Carrollton, is headed to Auburn to join Carl Lawson and company in Old Kings. Wesley Green will play for Steve Spurrier as well as he's on his way to Columbia. How about Locust Grove's Cortez McDowell? He will join the Berry brothers in Knoxville as he's headed to Tennessee. And running back Stanley Williams from George Walton Academy, UGA's first verbal commitment of the 2014 class, but he's now headed to Kentucky.
Some big names on that list. Bring back in Michael Carvell. Michael, who sticks out on that list to you and why?
Yeah, let's look at some of these guys. Nick Ruffin, he's from St. Pius. He was probably the state's #1 defensive back. He's going to Auburn. Another guy on there, Bryson Allen Williams. Real interesting story with him. He had a horrible 40 time as a junior or last summer. Everybody dropped off of him, and then he went to an all-star game and was like the best player there. So everybody got back onto him. He took official visits to Alabama and Georgia, South Carolina. The whole state was about to sink if he decommitted. He decided he was going to stick with the Gamecocks. Big recruiting victory there for Steve Spurrier. Dontavius Russell, he was an early commitment to the University of Georgia and switched to Auburn. A lot of that had to do with his relationship with Georgia's former recruiting coordinator, Rodney Gardner. Wesley Green, he was down to South Carolina and Georgia, but he did not make his official visit to Georgia this past weekend. So obviously he's going to pick the Gamecocks later on today. Then you have Cortez McDowell. I thought he was the best safety in the state of Georgia. He committed early to Tennessee. You could see him pop up in the Major League Baseball draft. And finally, we have Stanley Williams, running back. He committed. His claim to fame is he committed to Georgia as a freshman. Man, you got to be the big man on campus if you're committing to an SEC school as a freshman. He did it. Things didn't work out. He signed with Kentucky today.
I think Carvell signed with the
Lots
UJC
of talent
coming out of high
in
school. All right, now back to the state's top recruit now. Norcross's Lorenzo Carter is the kind of player that can make a school's recruiting class. 268 total tackles the last 2 seasons, 90 tackles for a loss, 24 sacks in those 2 seasons. And, yeah, let's not forget the 2 state championships to go along with it. He is an impact player that has brought many coaches to Norcross. Carter will make his college decision in about 2 hours. But last night, after he scored 14 points in the Norcross basketball win, I tried to get him to open up a little bit and reveal something new.
You gonna be able to sleep tonight?
Nah, I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to stay up. I'm going to be trying on my outfit, looking in the mirror a little bit. Yeah.
So as of right now, you know where you're going?
Not yet.
As of right now, you still have, you're still undecided?
As of right now, I'm about 60-40. Yeah.
You want to tell me who's in between?
Nah.
All right, but it's close. When it comes to deciding where you're going to take your talents on the college level, what's the most important thing for you, Lorenzo?
Being comfortable. I mean, it's going to be a 40-year decision, so I got to be comfortable where I go.
When you look at academics, athletics, facilities, is it a combination of everything, or is there one thing above all?
Yeah, I think facilities, everything is basically the same at the level I'm at. And then academics, I'm going to have support. So I just got to make sure that I'm comfortable and I like the coaches.
Who's in your circle of trust that you rely on for advice, for assistance, for help when you make this important decision?
It's my mom, my dad, my sister, my athletic director. So I got a pretty small circle, but it's a lot of people I can trust.
When do you think you'll make the decision internally in that circle? Because time's running out, my friend.
Yeah. I'm going to let my parents know. We're going to sit down and talk tonight.
How would you describe the overall process?
It's fun but crazy. Take your time, man.
Is that the advice for future Lorenzo Carters of the world, to enjoy the moment, but realize it's an individual choice, and what might be great for you might be different from somebody else?
Oh, yeah. You got to take your time, enjoy it. I mean, there's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
You ready for it to be over?
Oh, yeah, sure enough.
Can you tell me who are the schools you're coming down to, the final choices?
Florida State, Florida, LSU, and Georgia.
and 60-40 between two schools, and you'll let us know tomorrow afternoon. Are you ready to be over? Good luck with the rest of your career, man. Look forward to covering you on the next level.
Thank you.
He said, take your time. It's signing day.
It's ready to go.
Yeah.
Get after it.
He took a while. Let's also remember, this guy's a leader. They started 0-2.
Yeah.
Got blown out in their opening game by the team from Miami. DJ, let's turn to you. Does this favor Georgia at all, the fact that he has taken his time and waited until so long, the final day?
I think it has. When you have a chance to really think about what you want to do, he said, I've enjoyed every moment of this. And you think about the intangibles that he has, he's going to make a great defensive end, outside linebacker on the next level. But I think it favors Georgia as well. Last thing he can really remember is sitting in Coach Rick's living room playing cornhole or whatever it is, watching the Super Bowl. That's his last memory of Georgia, and I think that's going to bode well for him.
What do you think, Michael Carvell from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution? What does your gut tell you about Lorenzo Carter? Where do you think he will sign? And will he, if possible, can he live up to the hype?
Yeah, my guess, you never know with these kids, but I would say Lorenzo Carter will commit to Georgia. And the reason I say that is because his mother ranked their official visit to Georgia this past weekend as an 11. On a scale of 1 to 10, they gave it an 11. So I guess that's pretty good. But back to Lorenzo Carter, how good is he? I think he's outstanding. The thing people forget, especially when they talk about that game against the team from Miami, Booker T. Washington, recruiting is all about potential, not production. They don't care about what you did, last week or today. They're looking at what you can do in 3 or 4 years. And his potential, his ceiling of potential is off the charts. I mean, he might not do anything in college, but he also has the ceiling of potential to be a first-round draft pick. You hate to say that about high school kids who have yet to play in college, but you just look at the guy. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6", has a 42-inch vertical jump. Great pass rusher. I mean, all the intangibles are there. It's just a matter of him getting into a college strength program, learning and getting experience. And I think the sky's the limit for Lorenzo Carter. But my guess, he goes to Georgia, and that 2-star defensive tackle from Booker T. Washington, he can watch him in the NFL maybe in 5 or 6 years and say, hey, I played against Lorenzo Carter.
I talked to Carter last night about the basketball skills. He says he has a 41-inch vertical jump, and I said, you could dunk over me. He said, I can jump over you. Wow. He is getting a lot of attention here, obviously, in Georgia and nationwide. And
for good reason. Here's a closer look at this star recruit as well as the family that supports him.
Get to the game, powered by American Family Insurance. 6'5" defensive end Lorenzo Carter of Norcross, Georgia is a 5-star recruit with big dreams on and off the field.
My dream is to just either get my degree or go to the NFL. Either one, I feel like I'd be successful and I'd be able to help my family out.
Other than the NFL, Lorenzo would like a career in engineering. He wants to do something that helps the community. Being active in the community is something that we've always taught our children. We always taught to give back.
Lorenzo's done a great job over at the Boys and Girls Club, and to me, that means more than what he does on the football field.
We always tell them that if God has given you many gifts, a lot is expected of you.
Lorenzo has the ability to play multiple positions, but he knows where his passion lies.
He's a fast player, explosive. I love defense. They try to put me at tight end, but I don't like offense.
I said, Lorenzo, why don't you play tight end? He said, no, Ma, I like to play defense. I want to hit somebody, I want to hit the quarterback. So he's always stuck to defense.
He's one of those kids that everybody loves to coach. In practice, he's going full speed. You don't become one of the top defensive ends in the nation by not playing hard.
He puts his mind to do the extra to get better. He's not happy with mediocre.
Lorenzo knows he is fortunate to have parents who have been there to support him every step of the way.
My mom and dad are the most important people in my life. Without them, I would be nothing.
He wants to make sure that we're proud of him, and we tell him that we're proud of him.
The relationship me and my son have is unique. My wife says sometimes we're like two kids. We get in trouble with Mom.
My biggest influence would be my dad. He's just shown me that what it means to be a man. It's all about your family, family first.
To watch more inspiring stories about these incredible athletes and their dreams, visit amfam.com/gettothegame.
Well, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets always need a steady supply of running backs to run Paul Johnson's spread option attack, and they certainly got a good one in North Gwinnett, C.J. Leggett, who piled up nearly 2,000 yards from scrimmage this season in the state's toughest region. The 3-star recruit scored 24 touchdowns and is ranked as one of the top 50 running backs in the country.
He can fly down the sidelines, to say the least. All right, let's check out who else is headed to the Flats. To play for Coach Paul Johnson and the Yellow Jacket faithful. Leggett will have several teammates from the state. West Forsyth offensive lineman Andrew Marshall. Twins Lance and Lawrence Austin from Lamar County signed with Tech. And defensive end Keshawn Freeman will play in Atlanta at Bobby Dodd Stadium. This is tough to get a Bulldog to talk about a jacket, but I know you'll take off the colors of the red and black and talk about C.J. Leggett. Yeah. You've seen him play. We saw some of his games at WSB-TV.com. Is there a certain running back style that benefits Paul Johnson's triple option attack, or if you can run in a pro style, you can run in that style?
Well, yeah, if you notice, Paul Johnson's kind of prototypical back, or small, low to the ground, low center of gravity guys, and C.J. Leggett is the same kind of guy. I think he will flourish in Paul Johnson's offense just because, they, like you mentioned, they have numerous amounts of guys who can get the football, and he's known to tote it 20, 30 times a game, and he will need that, especially going to the next level in that triple option offense where they have to, move guys around all the time in different positions to run the football. But C.J. Leggett has the tools to play. He's run, he's fast, he's kind of elusive, and he's kind of thick, so he can definitely withstand some of the pounding that takes of running the football every single down in that Paul Johnson offense.
Everybody in the country that wants to play at the next level, DJ, wants to play immediately. They want to run the rock, they want to either catch the ball or throw whatever position is, they want to be on the field at that time. Knowing, that your offense is 90% run, how advantageous is that to Paul going into prospective high school kids and say, this is what we do? And you think when he moves forward that he could say, listen, we might not be that pro style. Everybody gets that sexy word. I mean, they don't do this in the NFL, but at our school, if you want to get recognized, Jonathan Dwyer, look what he's been able to do in Pittsburgh, come to us. It only helps?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, you look at what they put out that goes to the National Football League. Even for receivers, you don't think it's kind of tough for receivers to go to Georgia Tech and play. You look at Calvin Johnson, Demarius Thomas. You saw Demarius Thomas, have a record in the Super Bowl. Calvin Johnson, highest paid receiver in the National Football League, played a triple option. So it's very easy for a guy to say, all right, they run the triple option, but they're also going to give me my chance, and there's still a chance to make it to that next level. So it's real advantageous for guys who are receivers and also running backs, because guess what? As a running back, you're going to get the ball numerous amount of times. And as a receiver, when you get your chance, you got to make the most of it. And then their recruiting tool is, hey, look at the guys we got in the National Football League right now.
Let's also remember, too, I always hear in the NFL vernacular, when a guy's injured, say his rookie year, and then you get him back healthy for the next year, and a lot of times they say you're getting an extra first-round pick if you get that guy and he's hurt early as a rookie. Let's not forget, they're also going to get Travis Custis, a guy who was a stud last year at Lovejoy, led them to the state championship. So, I mean, he's going to come into the mix as well. You had him with C.J. Leggett. Scary. Yeah.
The man responsible for bringing these guys to Atlanta, Coach Paul Johnson. We will hear from him live in a phoner next. We're just getting cranked up, folks, here on our Sports Zone Signing Day Spectacular. Back with more. Paul Johnson when we come back.
Sports Zone Signing Day, presented by American Family Insurance. Your dream is out there. Go get it. We'll protect it. Find out more at amfam.com.